Hello, this is Sherman Blackwell, and welcome to today's program presented by Singing River Mental Health. Thank you for joining me today. We are so delighted to be able to come to media events like this and talk about the programs that are happening at Singing River and those that are particularly indigenous to Jackson County. And thank you for so many of the good comments, and so many of you tune in and watch the program. We appreciate that very much. Our goal, of course, is to let you know of the services available. The number you see at the bottom of your screen there is a number that is available. We think it's one of the most important numbers in Jackson County because on the other end of that number is a mental health professional that cares about what they do and cares about the community that we serve. And so make sure that you keep that number handy by. Today, got a very special guest on the program who's no stranger to the program, Dr. Greg Fox. Dr. Fox, good to have you on the program today.
Appreciate you having me.
Good to be here. We have a special announcement by way of Dr. Fox. He is now the acting A&D director for Singing River Services, and congratulations on that. And he has been with us now. September will be 2 years,
That's
I
right.
believe. 2 years, time flies, and has come up, started doing groups, the intensive outpatient group.
As a therapist, yeah.
As a therapist, and moved over to the Stevens Center as the director of our residential program, and now serving in the capacity of our A&D director, which is one of our primary programs. Of course, our three categories that we serve, of course, substance abuse, mental health, both adults and children, and then the intellectual disabled community that we have. And we think that Region 14, which is our catchment area, that is Jackson and George County, is a special place because of the total 15 regions, only a few left do all three of those categories, and we have some 45 different programs that divided out of those categories, and where a lot of regions have let that go to regional centers. We are been fortunate to make sure that as long as we can keep every program going in our community. And of course, we are all concerned, as I've mentioned on this program, about the Medicaid issue in the state of Mississippi. That's something that's very important to community mental health because it's important to the people that we serve and how they get their services. And so if you are a proponent of that, as we believe most people that watch this program are, because the job and the goal of Singing River Services is to help people who many times cannot help themselves, and is to let your legislator know, your state representative, your state senator, how important that is. And I know everybody has different opinions about that, but we are talking about service to the most in need in Jackson County. Dr. Fox, as we mentioned, you have done a little bit of everything now, or kind of, in the substance abuse arena, now as the A&D director. Tell us a little bit. Of course, there's some great, exciting things that are happening at the Stevens Center. A lot of good things are happening. Tell us, remind the community about the Stevens Center, what it is, and what's happening over there these days.
Well, first of all, I want to really appreciate you giving me this opportunity, because getting the word out to the community is vital for us. We've been, Stevens Center's been on Telephone Road, 4905 Telephone Road, for about 35 years. But I think the word really continues to have a need to get out there. And I think we're doing some really good work. We currently are able to have 22 clients, both male and female. And our primary objective is to help the community, and this community, Jackson and George County, as well as the outlying communities as well, help people with substance abuse problems and trying to get their life back on track.
I know for until you really took that over, that was kind of a situation that I know for a fact was kind of floundering and having difficulty getting people in. And that you've already maximized the capacity. We're looking, of course, at expanding it to our three-quarter way house, which we're doing some remodeling work on now. Doing that, and then. Who knows what the future holds. We do have some designs on a campus type setting for all of our substance abuse programs. I think that's an excellent model where we can have everything on one location. Dr. Fox, you know, there is a growing concern, growing need in not only our community but in every community that concerning evolving substance abuse. We talked a little bit earlier today. Can you, when you talk about addiction, can you kind of give us a definition of what that is and how that may affect folks in different ways?
There's definitely a few different definitions of addiction. One being using a mood-altering substance despite negative consequences. Another being that it's a chronic, relapsing, progressive brain disorder. And another one being addiction as a love and trust that a person begins to develop for their drug or their chemical or their alcohol that they use to take care of their issues and problems, which works for a short period of time, but in the long run ends up being quite destructive.
Right, exactly. So I know that the modality that we pursue with our substance abuse is a science-based and I guess different things, people respond differently. Is there such a thing as a paradigm or a threshold where someone can say, you know, I'm no longer an addict, or I'm no longer addicted to this particular substance?
That's the danger of the disease of addiction, denial. And a lot of times, you know, people will think that the longer they stay clean, the less of a problem they have, and it ends up becoming more of a dangerous situation for them. They let their guard down and they think they can go back out and have a little drink here and there, and it ends up becoming very destructive very fast.
Very fast, yeah. So then do I hear in that it's something that is a day-to-day process and something that you have to only take it a day at a time?
And that's what we base our treatment on, 12-step model, okay. You know, of AA and NA, one day at a time.
Okay.
You know, we try to, a lot of our clients start at a very young age, and instead of trusting the values that maybe they were brought up with their families or society, and trusting their family, trusting community leaders, they turned away from that and they started trusting, you know, the drug or the alcohol to take care of their problems. And over a long period of time, it gets worse and worse. Okay. It works for them for a little while, then they start stealing and forging prescriptions and, you know, tardiness and absenteeism at work and lying to their family members. And next thing you know, the last stage is very destructive. They lose their families, their job, and their freedom. Mm-hmm. And so we try to turn them back to certain very simple but very, very strong values. And we teach them to start trusting in the 12 steps and their values and themselves again.
Okay. Yeah. Take us, if you will, through the programs that are now your area of responsibility, the DUI program, the IOP, and talk a little bit about those.
Okay. Well, the IOP is an intensive outpatient program. It's located at our main facility in Gaucher, and it is a 15-week program. It's 3 hours, 3 times a week, either in the day or night. There's random drug screens, and it's basically it's a group sessions that are education-oriented on the disease and coping strategies, as well as a place where they feel comfortable that they can share their issues that they have and their problems in a non-threatening environment. Our other program is the DUI program. This is for people that are trying to get their license back, driver's license back, and it's a 10-week program. It's I believe 1 hour a night,
Okay.
and once a week. And then we have a dual diagnosis program, which is kind of associated with the mental health part of Singing River Services, and that's once a week also, and that's for individuals that have substance abuse problems as well as some mental health issues
Okay.
that may not be able to function
Gotcha.
at a higher level as the IOP or in the Stevens Center. Yeah.
A lot of different programs going on.
Right.
And I know a lot within the Stevens Center. And after we come back from the break, we want to talk a little more about the co-occurring thing and anything else you got on your mind you think that would help inform the public. And that's, here again, is our primary goal, is to bring you information regarding the programs that are provided at Singing River Mental Health. And last week on the program, I talked to you about 3 different new brochures that we have: relaxation techniques, what you need to know about depression, and what is good mental health. And we want you to know that we have that kind of information, plus much more available to you that we would be glad to put in your hands. Be glad to do that. Also, I want to take time to remind you, last week we talked about our day treatment program, which is a program for an intense program, 8-week program. We're now in the 2nd week of that program for children, teens, adolescents that have issues with serious emotional disturbance or behavioral issues or some type of social issues. We have that going on this week, and I talked to you a little bit about that last week. And if you think that you have a family member that would be appropriate for that program, you can call the number that you see on the screen there. We'll be glad to get you in touch with the appropriate personnel about that. That's Monday through Friday. It's 9 to 2, and it's a therapeutic, science-based behavioral mod program. And it's, even though it's that, it's also inductive in that it's interesting and even fun for the individuals that we serve in that program. And we think it's a very important program. And now that school's out, one thing that school does help with the type of population that the individual, the children that we serve, is gives them structure. Sometimes that structure goes away in the summertime, and this gives them 8 weeks of continued structure, while all the time giving them some knowledge, some insight, and some behavioral mod things going on while it's all a learning experience. And when we come back after these messages, we're going to continue to talk with Dr. Greg Fox, the A&D Director for Singing River Services. Hello, this is Sherman Blackwell, and thank you for joining us today for the second half of this program. My guest today is the A&D Director for Singing River Mental Health. That is Dr. Greg Fox. And Dr. Fox, in the first half of the program, we were talking about some of the particular programs that were happening at Singing River. And a number of, I know immediately after Katrina, there was a spike in substance abuse use in what they call the 6 coastal counties. And we get a lot of different referrals. How do we, how do we get our referrals for substance abuse program?
Well, I'm hoping this is a big way right here, you know, because we really, we get them from lawyers, and we get them from judges, probation officers, but we also, people are finding out by word of mouth, and I think we're now on the internet, so they can look us up.
Right.
We don't really care how anybody gets to us, any of our programs. We just want to be available, and for, we know people that have substance abuse problems don't wake up in the morning and say, I think I want to go to treatment. It's a family disease, and a lot of the family members will encourage and insist that their family members go into treatment, because this disease destroys families. It destroys really just about anything that touches the addict's life. and we just want to give them a chance to be able to turn their life around.
When you say it is a family disease, do you mean it has a systemic stripe to it? It comes down through like green eyes would, or brown eyes, or is that how it happens, or is that a part of the way it happens?
Well, alcoholism has been found to be genetic, and it increases your risk from being alcoholic if you have it in your family history from 15% to 65%. It hasn't been proven yet with drug addiction, but I think what I've seen, firsthand, it is being passed down generational, probably genetically, but definitely with the environmental influence on it. Yeah, it's becoming just grandparents and parents and kids doing them together.
Yeah, right.
And we're seeing this in with the mental health issues as well that are involved. If you have bipolar disease, your chance of becoming an addict are also a lot higher.
Okay. Hence the co-occurring or dual diagnosis that you were talking about earlier.
Right. And co-occurring disorder is the new term for dual diagnosis, and that is you have two diagnoses. One is substance abuse or alcohol abuse or dependence, and the other is a mental health issue, which would be either schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, regular generalized depression, anxiety disorders, a whole range of different diagnoses. And if you put the two together, you have a really, really destructive course. And
Right.
a lot of people with depression have a very tough time staying off the chemicals. They're trying to self-medicate themselves to feel better. Yeah.
Become numb. And and we're talking about alcohol, but it also includes, of course, medication, medicines, those kinds of things. And not necessarily, what you alluded to earlier, not necessarily just illegal drugs like, going out to smoking crack with somebody, but in the medicine cabinet, huh? I mean, that's readily available. Does that start that way?
Yeah, it's really changed a lot over the last 10, 15 years. The opiates, the Lortab, the OxyContin, going to doctors to get prescriptions for medications that are being abused. And we see a range from methamphetamine, crack cocaine, heroin, to the opiates and the benzos like Xanax and Valium. We're seeing abuse really all along the gamut.
Dr. Fox, do you think, and when you talk about, I guess people talk about drugs of choice, but I know running rampant not only in our area, but in a lot of areas all over the nation, you talk about meth and how that is so addictive, and as opposed to, we'll say like Lortab, which may be addictive too. What is it? Just accessibility for the person that, or is it when you say drug of choice? What does that come to mean?
The drug of choice is really the primary drug that the individual uses to take care of his pleasure, to solve his problems, to take care of his issues, and it really depends on the person. I think that anybody that's an addict, they can be addicted, and their drug of choice can be cocaine, and 10 years later it could be opiates.
Okay.
And 10 years later it could be heroin. I mean, it just really cross addictions. It really doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Just the course of recovery is much different. With opiates, we're seeing a lot of depression. It's just the recovery process is really different for the individual and their drug of choice.
Okay. So
But for the most part, it's the same
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
It's abstinence.
Gotcha. And the goal, of course, that is what we do when we talk about recovery. We're talking about a little bit about a lot about after the fact, and people, for whatever reason, come to treatment when they come to treatment. And you haven't had a lot to do with this yet, but how important a role is for people to be in the community, like therapists, like our prevention program, to talk about and to try to interdict with children, and how effective is that process?
Well, I think preventative care here is very important. And I know we have a prevention specialist that goes to our schools, the elementary schools, and has a program with the young kids. I think it's extremely important. I think if you ignore the topic, and think it's just going to, go away, it's not going to. And apparently what we're finding out is that as the kids are getting exposed to drugs and alcohol at a much, much earlier age. And so I think preventative measures are extremely important.
Is that much more critical? And I certainly agree, and particularly when we see the alarming rate that it's in school systems and, like you said, in the families, in the schools, and school is a great opportunity, a great place to be able to capture students, to give them the information, to talk to them. And I do think that I think children are very able to shape and mold and impact their thinking process, their emotive process, and so that's critical.
I think it's extremely critical because a lot of these kids are going home to families that drugs are widely used, and they don't really have a place where they can really trust. So it's really going to be a power struggle between what they see at home and what they see at school. So I think that it's extremely important for them to be exposed to people that they can trust, that are trying to help them and educate them on this. I think it's very important.
And so the importance of prevention is critical. And I know that you have worked very hard, very diligent, and we talked a little bit about this at the top of the show, but I want to go back to the Stevens Center, our residential program. What happens in the Stevens Center, regardless of how a person gets in there? What takes place in the 42 days that an individual is there?
It's a 42-day inpatient treatment, and when they first come in, they meet with their therapist and they go over a treatment plan, and that's individualized for that specific individual. And then they're given a list of assignments to do, which they have 42 days to do. They do a chemical history, they do a life story, females do a garden of life, and they go through steps 1, 2, and 3. We also do a MMPI, personality inventory test, that a clinical psychologist comes in and reads with them, in front of them, with all 3 therapists to better aid us in their treatment. There's group therapy once a day, and they have lectures twice a day. So basically we want them to kind of dry out. We want to educate them on the disease that they have. We want to break them of some of their distorted thinking, their rationalizing and their justifying and their minimizing, which is all part of the denial of the disease. It's a little intense, but it's not too intense, because we get into some of their family of origin issues, and we just try to kind of introduce them, because recovery is going to be a lifelong process. If you do too much right at the beginning, it'll kind of scare them off. But we also educate the families as well about enabling and how that can be extremely detrimental and life-threatening to the addict.
Very, very excellent point. So we're talking about, fundamentally, we're talking about insight, and we're talking about, of course, I guess there are different levels. People come in at different stages as far as their preparedness to change, for a paradigm shift in their life, and some of that may be very desperate, and some of it may be not so desperate.
One thing I want to add is I'm real proud of what we're doing at the Stevens Center. I think we have a top-notch staff that is extremely devoted. I want to mention them because they do an incredibly wonderful job. Without them, we couldn't get along. And I think we're doing some really good work there. And I encourage that if you have a family member that needs some help or know of somebody, please contact us. Our number at the Stevens Center is 228-769-1280.
1280, that's good. And Dr. Fox will be glad to talk to you, one of his staff members. In fact, we'd be glad to. Of course, we're already in the prevention sense going into the community, but we also work with employee assistance programs, coming to your place of business to schools to civic organizations, just to talk about the programs that are readily available. And you know, it's always good to have that information. Somebody, whether it may not be in their immediate family, knows somebody who's having issues with their children, grandchildren, substance abuse issues, drug issues, alcoholism is something that has to be pursued. It's not going to spontaneously remit.
Right.
It's not going to go away just to ignore it. So, well, Dr. Fox, thank you for being here today. It's been good. You'll have to come back pretty soon.
Appreciate you having me.
On a regular basis, and let's update and see what's going on with substance abuse issues, not only here, but across the state, because information is critical to get into the community and let them know about the availability. We're not saying we're the only place that you can get service, and we certainly are one, and we want to be sure that you get educated, get information about anything that you have, any inquiries regarding substance abuse and alcoholism. So this program's gone by too fast. We'll have to next time or two, we'll have to take a specific topic, and we can talk about the kinds of things that are happening and things that are happening here locally, because I know a lot of people are interested in that. My guest today has been Dr. Greg Fox, the A&D Director for the Singing River Services, and he's been the Director at the Stevens Center, and now has been promoted to the A&D Director. So thanks for being here, Dr. Fox.
Sure.
Look forward to seeing you again next week at the same time.